Good morning, everyone. We are going to wait a few minutes. Morning to those who are joining. We're going to wait a few more minutes before getting started. All righty. Thank you, everyone, for being patient as we allowed others to join. We are going to go ahead and get started here. I'd like to start off by introducing myself. I'm Natalie DeRose, the Partner Services Manager.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm Kelly Boycourt. I'm the Senior Manager of Food Sourcing, and it's so nice to see some familiar names here. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Francis, and I'm the Food Rescue Manager.
Good morning. I'm Molly Kern, CEO. I'm so grateful each of you are spending some time with us this morning.
Thank you, Molly. We'll go ahead and get started with our agenda. So we will be covering today new policies, policy refresher, covering some food safety training opportunities coming soon, temperature taking preview, and then updates from Molly, and then a Q&A portion. All right, to start off, I will be covering new policies. The first policy that I want to cover is disclosure of storage and distribution sites. So every year we ask that agency partners disclose all storage and distribution sites to the partner services team. And if your agency partner is wanting to include a new site or distribution site, the partner services team must be notified before you start distributing, and it must be visited by us for approval to begin. We just want to make sure food is being handled safely. Regarding product handling and storage, the SLO Food Bank sourced product may not be stored or prepared at private residences. This is new this year. It's just a food safety concern. Even if it's assumed to be stored safely, the environmental health regulations do not allow this, and we want to work with agencies to make sure that this is a smooth transition and that we can support you through this and get you in line with guidance. I know it will take some time, but we're here to support. And then if another point that I wanted to touch on is that if SLO Food Bank sourced product is stored in a shared kitchen or storage space, that the food is stored in a way that it's easily identifiable and separated. So this could look like including dedicated refrigerators and freezers, or having shelving to keep the items isolated from personal use items. The next thing I wanted to cover was agency size designation. We've made an adjustment to our agency size designations and the requirements to meet these. It used to be to meet either minimum number of people have served or families served, and we've narrowed it down to just one. So a small agency will look like seeing 0 to 49 people per month, and medium is 50 to 199 people per month, whereas large is 200 to 799 a month, and then extra large is 800 and plus. These numbers are reviewed on a biannual basis, and we just want to make sure that everyone is aware of our policies. Perfect. Thank you. Now I'm going to cover the policy refresher portion. I'm going to go ahead and get started with our statistics reporting. I just want to remind everyone that the requirements that we just ask as a SLO Food Bank is to gather household and individuals served, their age demographics, and the number of days food assistance is offered. I would like to make an important note. We do not require identification. We just want to make an easy, smooth process for folks visiting to get the food that they need. And right here, you will see a example pantry sign-in form. We have these available on our website under the Hunger Relief Network news box, toolbox, and I'll make sure to include this in the follow-up email for you if your agency is looking to use it. We can also work with you to tailor it more towards your needs. So here we have the city. If you don't want the city, we can just take it out and work with your agency to fit your needs of your program. Next, I want to cover our warehouse policy. So just a reminder, agencies pick up within a 30-minute appointment window, and these appointment windows occur between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. We please ask that you don't come earlier or later than 3 p.m. Our warehouse team is very busy and doing other tasks, and we've allocated that time slot for agency partners to pick up. Another important note is that there's only 3 authorized shoppers there at a time. We have 2 agencies who could be picking up during that same time frame, and it gets a little crowded during pickups. And then also a gentle reminder to please self-load. Frank is a busy man and can't always help. He's already lifting about 1,000 pounds per day, and it just adds to his list. And we want to keep Frank healthy as possible. And then another safety is to make sure that you wear closed-toed shoes during pickup. We just want to make sure that no one stubs a toe on the pallet, and we also want to prevent an injury before it happens. And then also, if your agency is going to be late or can't make it, we please ask that you call as soon as possible or reach out if you know. We want to work with you and make sure that our team is ready for your arrival and that we can have your order ready to go and easily able to grab. And if your agency is habitually late or absent during your slot without notification, we may have to temporarily suspend the account. Next, I just want to cover our ordering guidelines. So order changes. If your agency needs to change an order because you need less of an item after you received a donation, we want to know sooner rather than later. This comes into play. So we ask that you place your order 2 business days before your pickup or delivery. So this ensures that our inventory that is the most up to date. And in that 2-day window, we can make the adjustment to your order before you receive it. And then also when agencies place their orders outside of that 2 business day before pickup or delivery, it can impact the availability of certain items for agencies scheduled to order before them. And to ensure fair access to all, we ask that orders be placed within the designated time frame. Continuing on with orders, so if there's an order error, please let us know as soon as possible. We want to work with you to make sure that we can fix it and that you receive the right product in a timely manner, or you don't get charged for something you didn't receive. It's important to check your order pick list or your order sheet here, shown here. Frank or delivery drivers will have this ready for you to review and sign. And right here, you can see there's notes. So it's usually tally or check mark. And if we're out of an item here, it'll say out. And this is what the pick list looks like. We just refer to it as a pick list. But yes, please let us know as soon as possible if there's an error, and we want to make sure we can make it right. Continuing on, I just want to touch on our payment policy, invoices and monthly statements. So invoices are sent via email by our no reply at SLO Food Bank. Oops, there's a typo. I'll fix that and make sure you guys have the correct email. And that is sent after the order confirmation. And then monthly statements are generated on the first of the month. If you have someone at your agency who needs to receive these as well, you can just message me and the partner services team and we can fix and make sure that they receive it. Also note that both of these documents are available on Primarius/PWW under the My Documents tab. And right here, you can see this is an example of what an invoice would look like coming from the no reply at slofoodbank.org. Next, I wanted to cover our payment options. So currently we only accept checks, money orders, and cash. Unfortunately, we don't take debit or credit cards at this moment. And then next, regarding payment policy, our payment terms I wanted to touch on. So for services and goods rendered with those will be due 30 days following the receipt of the monthly statement. And after 30 days of non or insufficient payment, the agency partner is given an a notice of overdue and late payment, and access to goods and services are unaffected. It's just a notification for agencies to be reminded. And then after 60 days, the agency partner will only have access to no cost until payment is received. And then unfortunately, after 90 days of non or insufficient payment, the agency will no longer have access to services and they'll be placed on suspension. But we want to support your agency, and we just ask that you communicate and we can assist in this. Next, I want to touch on a big portion, which is transportation of food. So food should not be out of the danger zone for more than 2 hours, and especially if the outside air is higher than 80 degrees, this window becomes shortened. So this applies whenever food is being transported from our warehouse, when delivering food to clients or to another agency partner's facility, for example. We ask that you utilize insulated coolers or thermal blankets on those hot days. And then on rainy days, bring a tarp to cover your truck, especially the open bed, because you're getting all that cardboard wet and items in the back of your truck. And we just want to make sure that the food is protected and safe. And then with that, you should keep your cars in sanitary conditions, so they should be clean and free of debris. So with that being said, pets should not be present in the car during pickup. Just their fur gets everywhere, and just it's not a clean transportation of the food. It should be the food should be transported in a way that prevents actual or potential contamination. So for example, don't store food containing allergens next to one that's allergen free when transporting. It's just the small steps. And next, I would like to pass it off to Kelly to cover food safety training.
Yay, thank you, Natalie. Yeah, so I'm going to go over some updated requirements for food safety training. And this was announced also last year during a webinar, so some of it might sound familiar. You're not crazy, that's accurate. And then just kind of touch on like the why behind it. So Kind of the first thing is why, you heard Natalie mention food safety a lot in her prior slides and how it relates to the policies we have in place. So I just wanted to touch on again, why is this so important? And so I want everybody here to kind of think about when you go to a grocery store or a restaurant and you purchase food as a consumer, how do you know that the food you're purchasing and consuming is safe at those locations? And it's most likely because we know as a society and a community that grocery stores and restaurants are inspected and licensed before they can sell food to the public. And part of that is they have to prove and show how they're going to handle, store, and distribute food safely. And so because both the SLO Food Bank and all of our agency partners who are here, we are technically publicly serving food to the general public. Even though it's offered for free, we're serving it to the public. And so we actually have to adhere to the same food safety standards as these other entities that are distributing or selling food to the general public. It's just really important. It's a way for us to practice serving our community with care and dignity. Just because someone is in need of food assistance or receiving free food, that should by no means jeopardize their safety when they eat that food. And so we really want to avoid foodborne illness. And I think the other important piece here too is that it ensures our nonprofit network can continue to operate in SLO County. Let's say if somebody were to get sick from food that they received from the SLO Food Bank, that would put the SLO Food Bank and our entire network under scrutiny when we try to evaluate why that happened in order to prevent it from ever happening again. So just like to remind folks, that's kind of the space we're working in. It's, I think, a little easy to put us in a completely different category than like a grocery store distributing food or whatnot, but we are serving the general public. So that's different than when we're cooking at home in private for our friends or for ourselves. I know myself at home, I'm not following necessarily those same standards, but that's because it's my choice in the food that I'm consuming. So, along those lines, just kind of a brief reminder of where we're getting our food safety guidance. And it's really across multiple levels. So it kind of starts at this national level here. And so you'll hear the SLO Food Bank mention Feeding America. We are a part of Feeding America as an affiliate food bank. They operate across the nation with many food banks providing guidance, providing fundraising opportunities, food safety, networking, and a lot of really great things that help us be a successful nonprofit. And so Feeding America at the national level is really looking to the Food and Drug Administration Food Code for guidance on how nonprofit food organizations should be handling food safely. So we are looking to the FDA. And then kind of the next round of that is we have kind of the SLO Food Bank. We're operating at the SLO County level. And when we're looking at our food safety, we're more specifically looking at the California Retail Food Code for guidance, which is also based upon the FDA food code. They try really hard to never have these two contradict each other, which we love to hear it because food safety is should never be contradictory to it's either it is safe or it isn't. So that's good. And then even more specifically, the SLO Food Bank tries to provide guidance to our agency partners operating pantries, meal programs, and shelters in regards to how to safely handle food. And to get even more granular, the County of San Luis Obispo Environmental Health Department would be our local agency that's either inspecting grocery stores or nonprofit charitable food organizations. And they're also providing guidance on specific laws and guidances in our county on different things. And then ultimately, we hope this results in our recipients and neighbors or clients getting safe food from any level of this distribution path. And then just kind of two bills that are interesting to dig into if you've never heard of them. And I'll include in Natalie's follow-up email some links for you to read about these more in depth. But two bills that are kind of important to nonprofit charitable food organizations. The first one is the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act. It just rolls right off the tongue. This has been around since the late 90s. And so what this does is it protects food donors from liability if they donate in good faith. So this would be a lot for like in-kind food donation, food drive food, things that aren't purchased but rather donated. And so it protects nonprofit organizations that distribute that donated food. And it basically says, hey, if you're a nonprofit organization, you accepted donated food, we're not expecting you to know that entire donated foods history. We don't need a receipt showing that it was purchased from Vaughn's in 2024, we hope, not much earlier than that. So we don't need all of that to be able to distribute it. It's basically saying that the nonprofit organizations and the people donating the food, if they're doing so in good faith, with good intent, and to your best knowledge and best evaluation that the food is in decent condition, it looks clean, it doesn't look tampered with, it's sealed, it has a nutrition label, and that if you're distributing food in good faith, if it does for some reason, end up making someone sick or having an issue down the line, if you show, in good faith when you received it and distributed it, nothing was to suggest it was unsafe, it helps protect like that liability. So that's why it's good, to be sure you're inspecting your donated food. Yeah. And then the other one is the Limited Services Charitable Feeding Operation Act. That one came later in 2019. And so this provided some additional flexibility for charitable operations providing food in regards to the licensing needed with the county level environmental health department. And this bill really said that it recognized that nonprofit organizations might be operating out of a non-food facility. So that could be like a church kitchen. Many of our partners are at churches. We're not expecting your church to have an industrial level, storage bay that you would see at Vaughn's, for example. So it reduced those for most sites distributing food for charitable purposes, other than a meal site. A full meal site still has to adhere to the same regulations as like what a for-profit meal site would be. But this other one just said, we know nonprofit organizations are providing food access, so they don't need to be licensed as a full food facility if they're distributing whole groceries. And another part of this bill too said, especially, charitable food operations working with their registered food bank, you don't have to register with the SLO County Health Department, Environmental Health Department. The reason being is the SLO Food Bank reaches out each year and we say, hey, we are licensed. These are our nonprofit partners that we're working with. These, and we inspect them for safety every 2 years to make sure they're handling food safely. And so that's another reason why you all who are doing the pantries don't have to have environmental health come and license you every year. That doesn't mean to say, though, that we're not still under the purview of environmental health. So they can at any time still come inspect, or if they had a complaint or any report of a food safety concern, that might be an instance where we see them. It's pretty rare, but I think it's important to remember that is still the scope that we're operating in. That would be the entity that comes and looks at those things. Alrighty, so moving on to food safety training requirements, which is a huge part of ensuring that we're distributing food safely, is you need to know how it's safe to do so. So right now, our required training for all agency partners, no matter what type that you're doing, is that one representative minimum from each agency partner account must be food safety trained. And historically, we've used the ServSafe Food Handler certification to do that. It's about $6 and it's good for 3 years. I think it's also important to note that this one person from your agency partner organization who is certified, they should be someone who's actively involved in your food program. There might be someone else in the organization who has that, but if they're not actively overseeing the food handling, the food distribution, we really are going to ask that like your main point of contact or your main lead on handling food is the person who is certified. So that's a requirement for our pantries, our distribution programs, and things like that. And then a new requirement that has come from Feeding America based on food safety guidance is that all volunteers and staff who are picking up, transporting, or delivering retail food donations, so that would be our agency direct rescue, if you're rescuing from a grocery store or school district, anybody who's picking up those foods has to have food safety training. And so that's going to be a new requirement. And so the ServSafe Food Handler would fulfill that requirement for your volunteers or staff doing that. However, the SLO Food Bank is going to provide training for it. And so I'll touch more on that in the next slide. And then I mentioned meal sites are slightly different. They're held to a higher level because preparing food from scratch has a lot more risk for food safety and things that need to be monitored. So it is continued that if you are an agency preparing food from scratch, so you're taking raw ground beef, you're making delicious tacos, and you're serving that to people, you do need the manager level certification, and it does need to be in a licensed food facility kitchen. And so that would be a permit from environmental health to do that. And then lastly, so the new requirement is for agency partners who are participating in agency direct rescue from grocery stores. But all of our agency partners in some form are picking up, transporting, and handling most likely temperature sensitive foods. So those frozen and refrigerated foods, such as eggs or milk or cheese. Produce, certain types of produce are also TCS foods that need to be refrigerated or frozen. So I'm strongly encouraging really any volunteer or staff member in your account who is regularly handling food, especially if they're transporting it, and especially if you're getting a lot of, refrigerator or frozen items, I would strongly encourage them to attend the SLO Food Bank food safety training. It's going to be free, and I think it'll just really help have some set food safety principles that everyone in your organization knows about and is ready to handle food safely. So I mentioned the requirements. We're going to be providing this soon. My goal is it'll be ready by summer. And then once it's ready, we hope to offer this on an annual basis with any pertinent updates, or I think especially based on feedback from people who attend the first one. I really want to know what's most helpful for your agency to be trained thoroughly on, and that your staff and volunteers really want more information and guidance on. So we'll definitely be open to feedback when it's available. It's going to be free. We will make sure it's available to all your volunteers or staff who may need to see it. And then we're going to have a specific section that will be added on for the volunteers and staff actively involved in agency direct rescue, either from grocery stores or restaurants or the school system. And topics that we have to touch on, this was a guidance from Feeding America, but general food safety principles everyone should be aware of too are going to be the importance of food safety, different types of hazards, whether they're biological, chemical, or physical, allergen control, cross contaminations. This would be between maybe raw meat products and then ready to eat products. It's important to keep those separated. Personal hygiene, for staff and volunteers handling food, time and temperature control for those frozen and refrigerated foods. Time and temperature are our best ways to protect those foods from growing pathogens. So it's important to be aware of that. Evaluating food, I think we'll really focus on donated food where it has more of an unknown history. And then repacking food, which we actually don't allow. So that'll be a quick slide, but important to touch on the why behind that. And then transportation, cleaning and sanitizing, and pest control, best practices there. And then, yes, I think this will kind of answer Taffy's question too. How will this be available? So we're going to start off by this will be available virtually. We can all join each other again in a super fun webinar like this, but it will definitely be recorded and available. And I think we'll probably try to put it in kind of a form of some kind so that we can help our agency partners track who from their agency has watched it. So we're going to try and have some element that'll capture that somebody did watch the recording if they didn't make it to the main session. And then we're going to offer in-person training upon request. So I haven't come up with the minimum number of volunteers or staff, but we would love to come out to your site if you have, say, more than like 5 to 10, staff and volunteers who are really interested in that in-person food training. We'll be happy to come out for an hour and give the presentation or give, paper handouts or virtual resources to follow along. And I think that would be really cool too, especially if your agency has questions about your food safety practices or questions about it in general as it relates to how you're moving food. So we'll also be available, for consultation kind of for your current food safety practices, or if your agency has a food safety training program for your volunteers or staff that you would like some extra eyes on. We would love to do that. And I'd like to say too, if you invite us out for that kind of feedback, I won't bring the site visit form. It'll be a conversation. We'll look at it together and make those recommendations. And of course, if there's something there that is just really wildly food unsafe, we're going to be really upfront about that and say, please fix that before we come next time, in a different capacity. But we really want to be there to support you all and just really have everyone understand, why it's so important. And I think also understand how easy it can be to implement food safety practices once you know what they are. I think the hardest part is if it's unknown, you don't know what needs to change or how to practice food safety. So we really want to provide the knowledge that everybody is empowered and realizes it's simple stuff. It's washing your hands, looking at those fridges and freezers, and just building that into like everyday practices. So please stay tuned. And if you have any questions leading up to it or things that you're really interested in ahead of time, don't hesitate to reach out. Even if the training isn't ready, that doesn't mean that we can't be. So look forward to seeing you all again this summer. And then I will pass this off to Sarah, who's going to talk about another food safety element.
Cool. Thank you, Kelly. So yeah, hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm excited to be working with you all on food rescue. So now it's time to get into another food rescue update, which is temperature taking of rescued perishable foods. And this is just a preview of the training. There will be more resources available, so just keep an eye out. And like Kelly said, this update is only required for agencies participating in food rescue, but it is a good principle of food safety, and it's just good knowledge for all agencies to have. And if your organization starts to participate in food rescue, then you'll be ready to go. So yeah, we're excited to talk about this new requirement, which is based on the Feeding America guidelines, because the process is actually much easier than it may seem, which we'll get into. And because with this update, we're further able to ensure that we're feeding our community safely. By taking temperatures, we can make safe choices that protect our clients from foodborne illness. And I just want to say that this is not a punitive process. If you see temperatures go up by the time you're back at your site, or that the donation wasn't even in a safe temp to begin with, then this is just information that we can use to better our systems. We understand that temperatures may rise and no one will be in trouble because of it. We're not going to be pointing any fingers. It's just all useful data and will help us notice trends from particular donors or volunteers. So why do we take temperatures? To really ensure that food is safe to eat. Bacteria grows most rapidly between 40 and 140 degrees, and it doubles in number in as little as 20 minutes. So when you're picking up perishable foods, that safety window clock starts to tick down as soon as it's out of the cooler or freezer. And sometimes you have other stops or a longer route before getting back to your pantry. And then you still need to unload and process the food before putting it back into the coolers or freezers. So taking temperatures will make it easy to ensure that food is within a safe range to eat while it makes its way through our hunger relief network. And we just want you all to feel empowered in knowing that the food you rescue is safe to share with your clients. And it's also our responsibility as hunger relief organizations to provide safe, responsibly handled food to our community. Like Kelly said, we want to feed people with dignity and have them trust that the quality will always stay the same, and that the food they receive will be safe to share with their families. And also the SLO Food Bank's contract with Feeding America states that affiliate food banks and distribution partners will take and document temperatures of all frozen and refrigerated products at the time of pickup and again at the delivery site. And along those lines, all agency partners, also known as distribution partners, agreed to follow the guidelines set up by SLO Food Bank when signing the APR agreement. So what are safe temperatures? For refrigerated foods, that is 41 degrees or lower. For frozen foods, we're just looking to make sure that these products are frozen solid. And it's also important to remember that perishables must be staged, transported, and held at room temp appropriate to the relevant food item. And so some signs of spoilage include bloated packaging, like this lovely photo of some meat here. We don't want to share something that looks like that with our community. And freezer burn can also indicate that the product was previously handled unsafely. And of course, if it has a bad smell or is the wrong color, it is no good. And, if the texture is slimy or just wrong, or especially if the taste is off, you'll either want to, decline that donation at the donor site or just mark it as waste if you've already received it. So now let's get into some acceptable ways to take temperatures. You can actually just use the thermostat reading that's on the outside of the cooler or freezer if you observe the food coming out from the unit when you go to pick it up. And really, all perishables should be coming from the unit. We don't want those foods just sitting out until we get there. But alternatively, you can use one of these very handy food thermometers. And we will be providing each agency with thermometers as we start to roll out this requirement. And at that time, we'll show you how to calibrate them and use them. So what will this look like when you're out rescuing perishables? Let's get into it. So like I said before, all perishable foods should really just be coming directly from the cooler or freezer. We really don't want to be accepting refrigerated or frozen foods that have been sitting out for an unknown amount of time for many reasons. So if you watch the perishables coming out, you can just log the temperature reading that's visible on the thermostat outside of the unit. You'll want to record the temperature, the name of the donor, the date of the rescue, the type of product and time of pickup, as well as any other notes that may be relevant. And here's a preview of the log template. It's already available through the Food Rescue Toolbox, and it's in the Tools section. And also, please let us know if perishables are not seen coming directly from a cooler or freezer. At no time should this food just be left waiting on a loading dock. So let us know, and we can help with that conversation with the donor if needed. But if the food isn't seen coming from the cooler or freezer, or maybe the donor mentioned that they just staged it for you, you can use a food thermometer to take the temp. You only need to select one perishable food item to monitor and record that temp on the log. You do not need to take temperatures of all the perishables that you're receiving. The process is really that simple. And so what if the food temps are in the danger zone at the donor location? You should really consider declining that donation and explain why you're not able to accept it. And you can also encourage the donor to contact the SLO Food Bank Food Rescue team if they have any questions. And so now you're back at your pantry, and it's time to quickly process the donation and place perishables in the refrigerator or freezer. If possible, unload and process the refrigerated and frozen products before the shelf-stable items. And part of processing the donation will now include taking a sample temperature. So if you use the cooler's thermostat reading at the donation site, you'll want to choose any one of the perishable items and use the food thermometer to take its temp. And if you took the temperature with the food thermometer at the donation site, just be sure to choose that same item that you sampled, and then again, use the food thermometer to take its temp. You'll want to record that final temperature and time on the same line on the log. And just also please note that once this is rolled out, the food rescue team will be checking for the record keeping log during our ADR site visits. And so what if food temps are in the danger zone upon returning to the pantry? If the food was frozen solid at the donor site, but thawed during transportation, it actually can be refrozen so long as it's under 40 degrees upon arrival at the pantry. The quality of the product may suffer, but the food should still be safe to eat. However, if refrigerated items are above 42 degrees for more than 2 hours, or even 1 hour if the ambient temp is above 90, you should really discard those items as they are unsafe to eat at that point. And just always remember to inspect for signs of spoilage and document waste accordingly by weighing it separately and recording it as waste. And for food that was at a higher temperature for just a short time, like less than 2 hours, inspect it for any signs of spoilage, like off smells, sliminess, or discoloration. And just remember that the clock starts ticking for the product the moment it leaves the cooler. And it's typically assumed that temperature abuse hasn't occurred at any point during the product's life cycle, but just keep in mind that temperature abuse can have a cumulative effect on food safety. So now let's review how agency partners can keep food safe. Confirm perishables come from the cooler or freezer. Keep records of your temperatures. Use thermal blankets, which we will provide. Keep the time of food rescue trips to a minimum. Try for no longer than 30 minutes if possible. and process that donation efficiently so that refrigerated and frozen items get into the cooler or freezer as quickly as possible. And, we understand that this new temperature taking requirement will have a learning curve, and, it may take some time for each agency to implement. And we are here to support you, and we'll be providing initial temperature taking training plus ongoing guidance as needed. And as Kelly mentioned, we'll be providing annual food safety training as well. And as far as equipment goes, we'll also be providing all the necessary equipment like food thermometers, thermal blankets, and a temperature record keeping log template. And for next steps, we'll begin to distribute equipment and roll out trainings with virtual and in-person options. And Christy and I are planning on tagging along on some rescues throughout the next couple of months to kind of help implement it and just check in on how rescues are going for you. So keep an eye out for more info on this. And, just know that we'll follow up to check on how the process is going for your organization. And we're really here to support you through this transition, and know that we're always open to questions, comments, concerns, and feedback. Right. So thanks for listening. And now I will pass it on to Molly.
Thanks, Sarah. Really appreciate all of the amazing updates. This morning, I'm hoping to just chat with all of you a little bit because there's been just, I think, pace of change that I've yet to experience at the federal and also state levels. And so wanted to have an opportunity to talk with you all, share some things that the food bank is doing, but also answer any questions or things that have come up or concerns for all of you. So I think really the state of the situation that we're in is that the federal government has really been, I think, abundantly clear that they're looking to make really big changes across the United States, across lots of different aspects of government and life. And because food is something that is at the heart of so many of our lives, as we all know, every single person needs to eat nutritious food every single day. Lots of different types of changes can impact our food system and can impact all of us as organizations, but most importantly, can really create big changes for the people that we're here to serve. And so, what we've been doing at the food bank is really just leaning on some of the strengths that we have, which is that we are always in a space of adhering to and looking at our mission of alleviating hunger and building a healthier San Luis Obispo County, and continuing to lean into, like I said, our strengths of responsiveness and change and figuring out a way to really say yes as much as we possibly can when it comes to opportunities to nourish our neighbors. And we know that all of you are part of that also. We've all had experiences of needing to shift our operations to be able to meet the shifting needs of our community. And so many people on this call had experience doing incredible things during COVID. So many people also have been part of food service and this part of nourishing our community for years and years and years, including our COO, Andrea Keisler, who is a leader at our food bank during the previous Trump administration and other times. And so we've really been leaning into that wisdom and strengths and history that people who have been around for a long time are able to share. And we've been really working since about a little bit earlier in the fall before the election to analyze our processes to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that the people that we're serving feel comfortable and safe, and providing all of the different reminders and opportunities for people so that they can feel safe getting the food that they need. And so some quick examples of that are that we look through all of our sort of sign-in processes and things like that that we have at our neighborhood food distributions, at our children's and senior farmers markets, and through our senior home delivery program, and really looked at, hey, what questions do we absolutely need to be asking of people who are here to receive food? And taking out any of the questions that we didn't need to have there, because we know that sometimes asking for more information can create a little bit more fear and distrust. And also, we want to make sure that we're not storing any personal information for any of our clients that we don't have to. And so, at all of those places that I just mentioned, we're never asking for ID, never asking for confirmation or sort of like proof of income or things like that. It's all self certification. We're also putting out videos. You might have seen some with Cliff and John and Jesus to help really remind the community that if they don't feel comfortable coming to a site themselves, that they can use an alternate pickup form to send a friend or a different family member who does feel comfortable to come and pick up on their behalf. And so that is something that we have seen rising increases of, which I think is a really wonderful sign that people are still getting the food that they need. And then we're also just having so much community conversation, because we know that fear can be, and is for all of us, such a powerful thing that changes how we behave. And so we know that each of you and so many of our other partners throughout this community who have deep, trusted relationships with the people that we're here to support, when they have information and can help provide those personal recommendations to all the different ways that people can get food. Sometimes it's referring to one another for different pantries and services that are available at different times, days, and locations throughout our county, or just saying, hey, you know what, you can feel really comfortable going to see Alf or any of our other, I'm just looking at who's on the thing right on the page right now, but you can really feel comfortable going. They're going to take good care of you. Here's the name of someone you might see there. And those personal recommendations and relationships really are the foundation of us being able to continue what we do. And so we are seeing some changes potentially come up, but really our approach has been to wait until the specific changes are clear before we start making any sort of shifts or guessing, because the types of changes that we're seeing right now are complex and oftentimes change a lot from when they're announced to even the end of that day that they are announced. And so we want to make sure that we are spending all of our energy and focus on serving our community, not trying to track things as they are in flux. And so that's really where we're moving. And then I think also just it's not just at the federal level that things are changing. The state level, things are changing also, especially with the budget that's being decided in Sacramento right now. A big thing that we're going to put, I think Natalie's going to throw into the chat right now. One of the most amazing grants that we've received since 2020 is called Cal Food. And that provides about $400,000 a year to the SLO Food Bank. And that is one of the ways that we're able to get so much produce and shelf stable food. Things like milk, eggs, and cheese all are purchased through this program. And it's currently sort of on the chopping block, as you will, for the state budget. And so we're super grateful that Senator John Laird, who represents a lot of SLO County, is championing the effort to get this full amount of Cal Foods funding included in the state budget. Like I said, for our community and our area, that would be a $400,000 cut, but statewide, it's a $52 million change that we would be experiencing. And I think it's important to know through this funding, we're able to purchase California grown and produced food. And so it's not only a cut that would really hit hunger relief organizations across the state, this would be a really big, like a $52 million hit to California farmers, dairies, other types of food producers. We get our tortillas, I think, as well from an amazing partner down in Santa Maria. We really try and use this funding locally to help build our entire food system. And so I know every single organization has different processes and boundaries when it comes to signing on to things. So we are not, this is not an assumption that everyone will do it, but if this is something that you feel comfortable with and are excited in joining us in, we would really invite you to join us in signing on to this Cal Food campaign letter. I think there are already more than 90 organizations across the state that have signed on, and we would be so honored to have you join us in this work. I think there's just a lot of other things that are going on. And so we do want to make sure if you guys have any questions, I'm going to stop talking now. So we have, I think it looks about 13 minutes for any questions, but happy to talk now, or if you're ever interested in reaching out directly, would love to have any conversations that would be helpful to you. Thanks.
Molly, this is Terry, and I bug your wonderful staff occasionally about uh, broadening or expanding the co-op food program. You have any thoughts or statements about that?
So I think just making sure the co-op food program is something that we have begun slowly growing over the past couple of years for opportunities for some of our very large agencies to get even more food and specific products. I think Boost is a great example that we can't get quite a good enough deal on to be able to offer for free, but we know is amazing and we still want to use our purchasing power to be able to offer it at a lower cost. And we are looking into really what we can do to expand that. And it's a space where we want to be able to make sure that our warehouse space and our staff space, I think Natalie mentioned, Frank is lifting about 1,000 pounds a day. That is true of all of our inventory and distribution team members. And so we really want to make sure that we are thoughtfully committing to how we're doing this and not sort of just saying yes and coming to regret it later when that amount of product ends up taking space away from free product that's available to all agencies. So that's really the approach that we're taking. But Kelly and Natalie are working hard on it.
Thank you.
Yes, if there's any other questions, it also just doesn't have to just be for me. There's so much amazing information that was shared about food safety and reminders on policy updates. So I don't want to take all of the time.
Well, I'll jump back in. Um, you know, in the last webinar we had, we were talking about the Harvestly produce. And, you know, I mean, that seems like a really good program and a great source. But for so many of us, this thing about unwashed produce, be, you know, some of the produce, it's okay. Other produce, it ain't okay, especially with our clients. Do you know if there's any, well, you know, we don't have washing facilities at ALF. So, and a lot of these farms, they're not going to wash it. You know, it's cost prohibitive. You know if there's anything that like an interim thing that we could do to wash some of the produce?
Hey, Terry, I'll jump in. Yeah, that is a challenge. I think we've experienced it here too, as well with some of our gleaned produce. We also don't have washing facilities, so I would strongly discourage any washing. Washing of produce is essentially processing it, and that requires like a clean room in a food facility sense. But I do think one area we might be able to try and help with that is better explaining to the ultimate recipients where the produce come, because I think that really explains why they're seeing it in that condition. So that's something where we could work to have maybe more informative pamphlets or things, because I think it'll help tell the story. Like you're getting, maybe these carrots have a little bit of dirt on them, but that's because they were harvested 2 years or not 2 days ago from, 2 days ago from a farmer that is, in Edna Valley or something, or from Tally Farms. And I think that might help explain to folks, it's coming directly from the source and not going through a grocery store. I think if people know more of that path, they might even feel more comfortable knowing that it came directly from a farm. It actually has been handled far less by people, which is the biggest food safety risk. So I think, my first sense is to try and raise awareness as to why the produce is looking like that. It's farmer, it's kind of farmer's market style. It's incredibly fresh. And that's kind of why it's coming in that form. And then also too, if you're seeing specific produce at your site that's coming in to a level that you think is unacceptable or it is just way too dirty, I would love to see photos of that, or just give me a call if that's happening. And we can definitely look into, like, should it be coming in like like that. Um, and also evaluating like if it's certain types of produce that when they come in with a little bit of dirt from the earth that they were grown in, kind of what level are we comfortable with, and then where is more communication needed. If that sounds kind of like a good starting point, we can definitely work on that. We have heard that too. I think that's part of the reason, and Sarah knows about this more. We don't glean certain produce that grows in the ground kind of for that reason, because I think we were doing some like carrot gleans, for example, and we just didn't have the facilities to get those like clean enough that we felt good, dirt free enough, I should say. Rather, they were clean, they were just straight from the earth. So it is a challenge for sure though, but I think our game plan will be to try and explain more why people are seeing that. So the reason it's happening is really cool. It's coming so farm fresh. It's coming straight from the farm.
Right.
Great, thanks.
I think on the flip side of that too, I'd be concerned with too much washing of a lot of it, that it just won't keep as long, and the shelf life is really important. So if you're getting cases of things like lettuce, I wouldn't want to be rinsed ahead of time because it's going to spoil so quickly.
Mm-hmm. We've seen that too. We've had a couple produce loads that come packed on ice, which is meant in an effort to help preserve that produce longer. But anytime you introduce more moisture, especially with refrigerated produce, I notice the most because it can't dry out as well in a fridge. You are going to be open to that getting slimy far quicker than if it's unprocessed. So that's another thing too that is good to know. And then at home, people can, rinse it and kind of clean it off as best they can when they're ready to prepare it, which will help prevent that spoilage too.
This is Christiane. Can you hear me? Am I on the?
We can hear you.
Christiane Munoz. I bump up against some issues on the grocery rescue, on my people that pick up grocery rescue. And I know we're not supposed to repackage things. So here's an example. The pickup person goes to Spencer's, and the butcher at Spencer's says, I have 30 pounds of frozen chicken. So he gives them all the frozen chicken, and then they bring it to the site, and they're putting it in packages. And I'm saying, we can't do that. That's one of the things we got. That was very clear. We can't repackage. So needless to say, I'm the bad guy. And
that's so tough, Christy. I totally hear you. Keep going.
I'm the cop or the mom of the whole place, And so when I told them I was going to be attending this meeting, you can't imagine the eye rolls I got. My husband says to me, well, what do you want me to do? Say no? And I said, yes, that's exactly what you need to say. And you pointed out now that they could politely explain to the grocery store that why we can't take it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really tough one, Christy. And I think you kind of, hit the nail on the head too of it's an ongoing process to foster the food safety mantra like across a company. I feel that's hard. It's I've worked in a college cafe with students who are thinking about so many other things other than food safety. So it's a learning process, and we can only just strive to be better. I think it's amazing that you're willing to be that voice of food safety for your team. So I think where we can help is maybe getting everyone in the room for maybe an in-person food safety training, with your agency, and just really reiterating those principles. And I know large format meat is tough because that's like such a generous donation and so needed by the community. But that could be a space where if it is like a larger format, could it be used at a meal site to prepare a large meal all at once? And we could connect. If your agency can't do that, there are other ones that might be able to. Or identifying like larger families that are maybe regular visitors to your food distribution, because a family of 6 to 10 might need a large form. They want to be able to make a big pot of soup that can, feed their entire family, or they can freeze it. So I love that you're being the voice of food safety. We appreciate it. I would strongly discourage any repacking. It's tough. Then other option too at grocery stores or butcher shops would be seeing, and I think talking to them, like you said, and seeing if they'd be willing to split it up into slightly more manageable quantities and just slap in a quick food label on there. That would be another space too, where maybe they might be open to that, knowing that it's really tough for you all to distribute like 50 pounds of maybe the same type of meat, but even 5-10 pound units might be better. So we can definitely connect.
They still need to have a label slapped on them, right?
Yeah, and most deli counters and butcher shops will have those quick print quick print labels. So it'd really just be if they could repackage it ahead of pickup into slightly more manageable sizes. That might be a request they're open to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I have a quick follow up on the repackaging?
Hi, Bruce.
Hi. Like when we get from Costco, we get a big platter of cookies. We've been putting them in bags, separating them out into maybe 10 different bags of cookies. Is that okay?
I would still say same. Any repacking, the food safety regulations state it must be done in a clean room with a food processing license. And then I think even with shelf-stable goods, something to keep in mind is the allergen label on that original packaging is really important. So for baked goods, that's something that comes up a lot for peanut allergies that for some folks are deadly, quite frankly. So that is another reason behind no repacking, is that we lose the information that was on that original label. But I know that is tough with the baked goods. So again, that's where we'd be looking for like large families, or that could possibly be maybe if it's just a cookie platter here and there, Bruce, that might be something that the dinner, people might want cookies after the Los Osos community dinner in that instance. But yeah, repacking is really for allergen and like the history of the food, not recommended, because we can't provide that information when we repack it if it's in like an unmarked bag.
Okay. And one last thing, just want to speak for everybody here. I'm sure we really appreciate all the work you guys do and the how open you are to questions. So we're very appreciative of you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you all. I think I'll hand it to Natalie.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. If we missed your question, feel free to reach out. I will send a follow-up email with our emails included. So if you have a specific question for any of us, feel free to connect directly. If not, I can be the leading man and guide you where you need to. We appreciate you all attending today, and we wish you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.